here I am, sitting in our sanctuary, and there's no one here. It's empty, and it has been, I think, for more than now 10 weeks on these Sundays where we would normally gather. But now, due to what's going on in our world, we're staying at home. It's disorienting. There's almost no Christian that I've talked to over the past few weeks that hasn't expressed some sort of disorientation. I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think about 1 Peter. And the first words, the first verse, he says he's writing to those who are elect exiles. The exile, someone who's displaced, someone who's not home, someone who is disoriented in a world that they'll never find rest. That idea really captures part of what it means to be a Christian. This world isn't our home. This world that we live in, that we buy homes in, that we raise our children in, the places that we shop at, the governments that are over us, none of this is final. None of this represents our homeland. We're pilgrims, really, passing through this life and waiting for the time that the Lord establishes his kingdom. And it's there, and there alone, that we will finally be home. But because we live in this world, we need to know how to live as exiles. How do we live as pilgrims in a world that doesn't understand who we are as Christians and what we're doing? 1 Peter has a lot to say about that. After discussing with the elders, we thought it would be good to start talking about, as a church, some of the very important realities that Christians must face as pilgrims. And so because of this season, we feel that it's going to be a very important time to teach about our pilgrim mentality. What does it mean to be just passing through? And so we're going to be teaching on the sermons that we've been releasing online are going to be oriented toward this theme, the theme that we are pilgrims. We're going to be calling it Priorities for a Pilgrim People. We're pilgrims here, and we need to think about our priorities in this life as we pass through. We're going to make it 4 weeks, and we're going to move through some very important discussions. First, we're going to think about the reality that this world is not our home. This Sunday, we're going to look at an overview of 1 Peter and talk about some of the mindsets we need to have if, in fact, we are exiles here. If, in fact, we are pilgrims, how shall we live? This world's not our home. Next week, we're going to look at what does it mean for us to live under God and under government. Peter addresses that in chapter 2. Paul addresses it in Romans 13 and several other places in the New Testament. Speak to Christians as under God and under a government. Well, how do we think about that? So we're going to unpack that on the second week. The third week, we're going to address a very important, it's really close to our heart as a church topic, and that is the topic of unity in the church. We want to look at the biblical foundations for unity. Let the scriptures speak to us and encourage us in that. And then on the fourth week, we're going to get a little more practical, even some details, answering this question. Well, how do I create and fight for unity with people I disagree with? Listen, these days, we're going to have disagreements. I sometimes disagree with my wife. I sometimes disagree with my best friends. Sometimes I disagree with people we agree on everything and we disagree on this little thing. Disagreements are part of our world. It doesn't mean we have to be disunified, but we do need to know how to disagree wisely, lovingly, charitably, gently. The Bible gives us actually a lot of direction for how to disagree with your brothers and sisters. And so I think that that'll be a really important discussion. We're going to look at Romans chapters 14 and 15. So if you want to get a little head start, you can start reading those two chapters even now. Here's our hope, that during this season, we would do all we can to glorify God. That's why we're here. Life is short. It's going to be over with soon. We're just vapors, and soon we'll enter into eternity. How can we glorify God now as pilgrims passing through? That's kind of the hope over the next month. And one of the things we hope happens for you is that these discussions, these sermons, create conversations with others in our church that build one another up and encourage one another in this season. So that's one of the ways we'd like to bless you, is to bring up these conversations, bring up these scriptures as a way to really think together about the priorities that we have as God's pilgrim people. We'll be praying for you in this and through this. God bless.